Hi, I'm Mina.
And I'm Yules.
Thanks for tuning in to Artificially Informed.
Welcome back to the deep dive. If you feel like the world is throwing information at you faster than you can process it, from quantum physics breakthroughs all the way to massive international political flare-ups, you are definitely not alone.
Not at all.
We have taken that huge, dizzying stack of incoming news and research, and we are here to try and extract the concentrated insights you need to be truly well-informed without, the data overload.
And this is, I think, arguably one of the most complex collections of material we've seen all year. Our mission today is to cut through that noise and really establish the critical through lines.
Right.
We're going to be linking the deepest secrets of molecular biology to the latest advances in artificial intelligence, analyzing these intensifying geopolitical tensions across Europe, the Caribbean, and Asia, and giving you the context behind the headlines.
That's the challenge, and we accept it. We have a microscopic organism that appears to defy the fundamental rules of life itself.
It's incredible stuff.
We have a theoretical physicist claiming gravity is a byproduct of computation, a $7.75 billion cybersecurity deal, and we will unpack why a partial naval blockade in the Caribbean has been condemned as an illegal act of aggression by the United Nations.
It's a deep dive into the very nature of reality, governance, and technology. So let's get started.
Okay, let's unpack this, starting in the lab, because we need to discuss a scientific finding that is forcing molecular biologists to, fundamentally rethink their textbooks.
That's not an exaggeration either.
It seems like it. We have a groundbreaking study from the University of California, Berkeley, involving an archaeon that's a type of single-celled microorganism called Methanosarcina acetivorans.
Right.
And this bug is challenging what has been a central pillar of biology for decades.
The central dogma.
Central dogma. What's fascinating here is that this idea, as established decades ago, it posits a highly deterministic, one-way flow of information in biological systems.
DNA to RNA to protein. Exactly. And that flow follows a rigid, universally accepted genetic code. This rigid code ensures that a specific set of nucleic acids, a codon always, without exception, leads to the incorporation of one specific amino acid.
It's a rule with no exceptions.
It was thought to be, yes. But M. acetivorans appears to be operating with a degree of freedom that, it breaks this rule entirely.
A degree of freedom that just shouldn't exist in that system. How does this ancient microbe manage to find a loophole in the biological rulebook that governs pretty much every other living thing we know?
Well, it comes down to a process called ambiguous decoding, and the mechanism is really key here.
Ambiguous decoding.
Yes.
Yeah.
In most life forms, the cellular machinery that reads the RNA, the ribosome, is designed for absolute fidelity. If the codon is GGG, it codes for the amino acid glycine, period. Full stop.
Right.
The Berkeley team demonstrated that M. acetivorans uses a flexible mechanism that allows the ribosome to interpret certain codons in multiple ways. It's essentially introducing controlled ambiguity into the genetic translation process.
So, if most of life is reading a dictionary where every word has one single fixed definition, this archaeon is reading a dictionary where certain key words have optional synonyms.
That's a perfect analogy.
And it allows it to swap one amino acid for another that wasn't strictly dictated by the original code.
Precisely. And by doing this, it allows the organism to incorporate non-standard amino acids into its proteins. Now, the implication for evolution is enormous.
I can imagine.
It suggests the genetic code isn't universally rigid and can adapt to harsh, changing environments in ways we just hadn't accounted for. This flexibility might explain how life survived major planetary crises in the deep past.
And if we can harness that ambiguous decoding, if we can figure out the precise cellular levers this organism is pulling, the implications for synthetic biology are, they must be revolutionary.
Oh, absolutely. If we connect this to the bigger picture, synthetic biology relies on precisely controlling protein structure. If we can intentionally introduce this flexibility, bioengineers could design novel proteins with functionalities that are currently impossible. Perhaps creating enzymes that work efficiently at extreme temperatures, or new therapeutic drugs that fold into highly specific, complex structures.
So you're turning the genetic code from a fixed reference manual into a programmable language.
Exactly. It's a paradigm shift.
That is a fundamental challenge to biology. But the surprises don't stop there. We also saw research that challenges the deeply ingrained idea that our health, particularly the composition of our gut microbiome, is purely an individual affair.
Yes, this was fascinating. Citing extensive research which examined thousands of rats to control for the environment, we saw clear evidence that gut bacteria are shaped not only by the individual's own genetics, but also, crucially, by the genetics of their social partners.
Like roommates or close contacts.
Exactly.
I have to pause on that. You're telling me my roommate's DNA might be fundamentally influencing the population and composition of my inner microbial ecosystem, beyond just physically sharing microbes.
That's right. The physical sharing of microbes through close social interaction is, kind of obvious. We know that happens. But the critical finding here is that the genetic background of your social partner can create an environment that either promotes or suppresses the flourishing of specific microbial species in your gut.
How does that even work?
The study suggested that the genetics of the social partner affects the host's immune response and the gut environment itself, which then selects for different microbes. It's an indirect but powerful influence.
Wow. If we connect this to the human experience, that finding completely challenges the traditional individualistic view of the microbiome.
It really does.
It links social and genetic environments in a fundamental way to human health, affecting everything from diet and infection susceptibility to personalized medicine approaches.
And this raises a really important question. If this correlation holds true in humans, could knowing the genetic profile of someone you live with become a factor in predicting or preventing certain health conditions? It makes public health policy less about just the individual and more about the social unit.
It puts a whole new scientific spin on choosing who you live with. Okay, moving from tiny microbes to evolutionary speed, we have a fascinating 40-year study on seed beetles from a University of California research team. What did 4 decades of observation reveal about the mechanism of evolution?
This was a long-term commitment, but it really paid off. This study definitively showed that sexual selection acts as a powerful accelerator of evolutionary change.
It puts it in the fast lane, so to speak.
That's the perfect phrase for it. The researchers focused on competition for mates, documenting rapid shifts in traits over the 40 years. For instance, male beetles with more vivid colors or larger body sizes were preferred by females, maximizing their reproductive success.
We know that evolution often involves trade-offs, right?
Okay.
So did these advantageous mating traits come at a cost to the beetle's survival?
They absolutely did. That's the balancing act. While these traits were desirable for reproductive success, they often decreased the male beetle's ability to survive. Well, for one, they might make them more conspicuous to predators. A brightly colored beetle is an easier lunch. Or maybe they were less efficient at foraging. But the core conclusion was that this relentless pressure from sexual selection is a powerful engine for divergence.
So it can actually create new species over time.
Exactly. It can catalyze speciation events and lead to reproductive isolation among different populations as their traits diverge to maximize mating success. It provides critical foundational evidence for how quickly new species can genuinely emerge.
Okay, let's zoom out from the biological to the cosmological. We are now shifting to the physics of reality itself. And I want to talk about Dr. Vopson's work, which takes the very popular, almost philosophical idea that our universe is a gigantic computer simulation and connects it directly to gravity and information theory.
Right, and this work represents a profound conceptual shift in how we might categorize the forces of nature. Vopson's theory proposes that gravity might not be a fundamental force in the traditional sense.
What would it be then?
A secondary phenomenon, something that emerges from the universe's inherent informational layer.
Okay, an informational layer. So imagine the universe not just as space and time, but as a computational framework.
Precisely. And in that framework, gravity is essentially a byproduct of the processing rules necessary to manage the vast amount of data stored within that framework.
It makes gravity sound like a regulatory function, like the universe's operating system needing to process all its data efficiently and prevent a computational overload.
That's a great way to put it.
I love how this connects back to historical philosophy, from Plato's cave allegory right up to modern musings about virtual reality. But is this still purely theoretical physics, or is there any supporting evidence for this?
Well, it moves beyond pure speculation because Vopson has actually derived Newton's classical law of gravitation from foundational principles of information theory.
He derived Newton's law from
Mhm.
information theory.
Yes. The core idea is that mass and energy are intrinsically linked to the informational content of the system. The connection suggests that space-time itself is a massive medium conveying data, and gravity manifests as the effect of minimizing or efficiently organizing that informational capacity.
So if gravity is an informational constraint, Then what happens when information is maximally dense? This raises an important question. What does this theory imply about black holes, where information is theoretically squeezed down to the absolute maximum limit?
You've hit on the key test bed for the theory.
And does Vopson's theory suggest that the decades-long hunt for a quantum theory of gravity might be fundamentally misplaced because gravity isn't a quantum force at all?
That is exactly the challenging territory this theory enters. If gravity is emergent from information, then the attempts to directly quantize the gravitational field like we do with the other three fundamental forces might be incomplete or even misleading.
And black holes would be the key.
Black holes, as the ultimate information sinks, would be where you test this. The theory would predict specific informational capacities related to their event horizons, linking thermodynamics, gravity, and information density in brand new ways. It really heightens the interdisciplinary dialogue between physics and computer science.
Mind-bending stuff that will keep theoretical physicists busy for decades. Meanwhile, on a more practical level, the University of Basel in Switzerland is trying to reconcile classical physics with the weird, unpredictable quantum world, particularly concerning thermodynamics.
Yes, thermodynamics, the science that governs energy, work, and disorder entropy, was established by giants like Count Rumford over 200 years ago.
It governs everything in our macroscopic world.
Everything. The Basel research is establishing the field of quantum thermodynamics, attempting to apply those classical laws, the conservation of energy, the increase of entropy to systems operating at the quantum scale, where energy states are probabilistic and highly unpredictable.
Why is achieving this reconciliation so crucial for quantum technology? Why does it matter for building, say, a quantum computer?
Because if you can't control the flow of energy and the accumulation of disorder, or entropy, in a quantum computer, you simply can't maintain the fragile quantum states necessary for computation.
So the system just falls apart.
It loses coherence. This research is about defining the boundaries of efficiency and defining how much work can be extracted from a quantum system before it collapses into classical noise. It's fundamental engineering for the quantum age.
And speaking of controlling quantum states, we have a vital breakthrough in precision photonics, the ability to purify single photons. Why is cleaning up light so vital for the quantum future?
Because single photons are the fundamental carriers of quantum information. They're what we use for quantum bits or qubits, especially in long distance, secure quantum communication.
Okay.
And if you have unwanted noisy photons mixed in with your signal, your quantum data transmission is compromised. It reduces both security and speed.
So how are the researchers achieving this quantum noise cancellation? How do you clean up a beam of light?
They developed a really sophisticated mechanism based on phase tuning. By precisely controlling the light's performance parameters, specifically the phase and coherence of the light, they can essentially introduce an opposite effect to the unwanted photons.
So it's like noise-canceling headphones, but for light.
That's a perfect way to think about it. They are tuning the light path so that the noisy light interferes destructively with itself, effectively canceling out the undesirable parts of the light stream.
And what you're left with is a clean stream of single photons.
A pure stream. And that clean stream is what enables stable, super secure quantum networks and computers.
Let's look up and out to the global space race. NASA, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, is gearing up for Artemis II. This is the first crewed mission back to the moon since the Apollo era, and it's scheduled for early 2026. They're putting a real emphasis on the often unsung heroes, the ground team.
They are. They're highlighting the critical role of the closeout crew, which NASA describes beautifully as the pit crew for the astronauts and the massive Orion spacecraft.
The pit crew. I like that.
It's a highly specialized team that is physically on site on launch day, ensuring the astronauts are securely strapped in, performing the final checks on life support, and closing that massive hatch with those air-driven mechanisms right up until T-0.
That analogy of a pit crew is perfect. It's high precision, high stakes, absolutely critical to the mission's success and, of course, the astronauts' safety. The reporting views this mission as potentially serving as a significant rallying force for the nation.
Drawing parallels to Apollo 8.
Exactly, to how the Apollo 8 mission provided hope and focus during the highly turbulent late 1960s.
It's the human element intersecting with technology. And just to acknowledge the holiday timing of this deep dive, we did see that image making the rounds. NASA engineer Guy Naylor, dressed as Santa Claus, posing with the Orion spacecraft and the Colossal Space Launch System, or SLS, rocket in the Vehicle Assembly Building.
A nice moment of levity.
It reminds us that human ambition drives even the most serious endeavors.
Meanwhile, Russia is focusing on long-term habitation solutions. Energia, their state-owned rocket company, has patented an innovative space station design built specifically to generate artificial gravity.
And this is an acknowledgement of a fundamental challenge for deep space travel. Exposure to microgravity causes severe adverse effects on the human body.
Right, things like debilitating muscle atrophy and rapid bone loss.
Exactly. Energia's patented design is based on rotation, creating a centrifugal force that simulates a more Earth-like gravitational environment.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this is absolutely necessary for those really extended missions, isn't it?
It is. You cannot send humans on the long-duration transit needed for a Mars mission, which could take 9 months or more, without some form of artificial gravity. This development positions Russia at the forefront of sustainable human presence in orbital environments in deep space. It's a recognition that the human body remains the weak link in long-term exploration.
Across Asia, India's space program, ISRO, the Indian Space Research Organization, is launching a commercial satellite, but also setting some incredibly ambitious economic goals for its commercial space sector.
India has massive commercial ambition and clear, aggressive targets. Their goal is to triple their spacecraft production capacity over just the next 3 years.
Triple it.
Triple it. And more broadly, they aim to significantly expand their share of the global space industry, jumping from a current 2% to an ambitious 8% by 2030. They are positioning themselves as a major global launch provider and satellite manufacturer, capitalizing on their cost-effective launch capabilities.
Before we leave the celestial realm, a couple of beautiful observations and a practical weather alert.
Yes, we saw 2 stunning images. The Hubble Space Telescope shared an incredible image of a cosmic phenomenon that astronomers have dubbed Dracula's Civito. It's a complex and colorful nebula formation.
Oh, I love that name.
And NASA provided a satellite gaze into Antarctica's Medusa Pool, showcasing the intricate, mesmerizing patterns of ice and meltwater across the frozen continent.
And if you're in North America, we had an alert about unsettled space weather.
Right. Recent intense solar activity has ejected charged particles into space, significantly increasing the chances for the northern lights, or aurora borealis, to be visible much further south than usual across up to 10 U.S. states on Christmas Eve, actually. A natural high-energy light show to cap off the year.
We transition now from the physics of the universe to the intellectual reality of the digital age, which is, of course, dominated by artificial intelligence. And the biggest headline here is the massive AI copyright showdown that's defining the legal future of content creation.
This is a critical legal challenge to the fundamental business model of large language models, or LLMs. The lawsuit is led by investigative journalist John Carreyrou.
The same journalist who broke the Theranos scandal in his book, Bad Blood.
The very same one. He's leading this alongside 5 other prominent authors.
Who are they targeting, and what is the core grievance here?
They are suing 6 of the major AI companies, Meta, Anthropic, Google, OpenAI, xAI, and Perplexity AI.
So basically everyone.
Pretty much the entire field. They're suing them for using vast amounts of copyrighted materials, specifically their published works, to train their foundation models without securing proper licensing or providing adequate compensation. Their argument is really simple. These models are built directly on their stolen intellectual property.
But this isn't just about filing a grievance. They're rejecting the establishment's attempt to settle this quickly. They opted out of a massive proposed $1.5 billion settlement. That takes some real conviction.
It really does. Their reasoning is that the settlement is grossly insufficient. They see it as a strategy by the tech companies to extinguish high-value claims at minimal cost, preventing any true accountability.
So they're forcing a confrontation.
By rejecting it, the plaintiffs are forcing a full legal confrontation. They're asserting that these tech giants must pay fair market value for the creative work used to build technologies that threaten to eliminate the value of human authorship altogether. It gets right to the heart of intellectual property ownership in the age of generative AI.
That is powerful legal tension. Meanwhile, the commercial side of AI is just accelerating at warp speed. While Carreyrou is drawing the legal line, Disney is jumping into the deep end with a significant investment.
The contrast is palpable. Disney, one of the world's largest content powerhouses, has made a substantial $1 billion investment into OpenAI.
$1 billion.
And this move is strategic. It grants OpenAI access to Disney's vast, highly valuable character portfolio, including core assets like Mickey Mouse, to integrate AI capabilities, particularly via the Sora video generation tool.
So on one hand, you have authors trying to protect the value of their past work, and on the other, you have a media giant betting $1 billion on what AI can create in the future.
It's an explicit acknowledgement from a company whose entire business is IP protection that AI is the unavoidable future of content creation, even if it creates immense licensing complexity.
This flood of AI-generated content is also having a direct, measurable effect on academic integrity and research output.
It is. The data shows that the use of AI writing assistants leads to a roughly 50% increase in academic publications overall,
A 50% increase.
which on the surface sounds good. And the tool disproportionately benefits non-native English speakers, which helps level the playing field in terms of language fluency. However, the concern is a severe drop in quality.
So AI helps you write more, but not necessarily better? What specific flaws are researchers and peer reviewers seeing in this surge of AI-optimized papers?
The criticism focuses on the lack of substantive scientific merit. These papers are often syntactically perfect, they read beautifully, but they're methodologically weak.
Waning.
Meaning they show superficial literature reviews, they lack true novelty, or they rely on flawed statistical interpretations because the AI smoothed over the language without verifying the underlying scientific rigor.
So it's a beautifully written paper about nothing.
Or worse, about something wrong. This volume surge is threatening academic rigor, slowing down the peer review process, and ultimately diluting the value of genuine intellectual contributions. It creates a massive signal-to-noise problem for the integrity of knowledge itself.
Moving to how technology interfaces with the physical world, we have significant safety and operational challenges emerging in the autonomous vehicle space. It's a reminder that software bugs have very real-world consequences.
Absolutely. Let's start with Zoox, the autonomous subsidiary of Amazon. They had a software recall affecting over 300 of their vehicles.
And what was the issue?
The issue stemmed from a software glitch that was causing concerning lane crossing behavior. And this is not a minor deviation. The reports indicate the vehicles were unpredictably drifting across road markings.
Which is obviously a huge safety concern.
A major one. This required a regulatory response, with the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, or NHTSA, closely scrutinizing Zeus's mitigation strategies. It emphasizes that every single line of code in an autonomous system is a matter of public safety.
Then there's Waymo, Alphabet's robo-taxi service, which experienced a surprising operational failure during a mass infrastructure event in San Francisco.
That's right. A widespread power outage revealed a major gap in their programming. When the traffic signals failed, a mass failure scenario, the Waymo robotaxis stalled, creating intersection bottlenecks.
Wait, that seems counterintuitive. Waymo stated they had successfully navigated thousands of isolated dark stoplights previously. If they can handle one, why can't they handle all of them?
It comes down to systemic shock and communication. Navigating a single dark stoplight is a localized decision based on sensor input and pre-programmed safety parameters.
Okay.
But when the entire grid fails across a district, the vehicles were likely unable to communicate effectively with the larger fleet management system. The sheer volume of simultaneous failure points overwhelmed the local decision-making algorithms, forcing a collective safety shutdown that, ironically, caused traffic jam.
So it underscores the fragility of autonomy when the basic urban environment breaks down simultaneously.
Yeah.
Yet, even as they deal with these immediate safety issues, Waymo continues to push forward with innovation, planning to integrate Google's powerful Gemini AI assistant into its vehicles.
That's the duality of tech development. This integration is designed for enhancement, optimizing routes, predicting traffic patterns, and tailoring the user interaction. Gemini will make the ride experience more intuitive, acting as a highly personalized, context-aware companion. It's a strategy that simultaneously addresses today's safety failures with regulatory compliance while integrating sophisticated AI for tomorrow's personalized mobility.
Cybersecurity is clearly non-negotiable in this hyper-connected world, and we saw a massive corporate shift reflecting that priority. ServiceNow's acquisition of the cybersecurity startup Armis.
This was a colossal all-cash deal valued at $7.75 billion, ServiceNow's largest acquisition ever.
Their largest ever.
And it underscores the strategic imperative to bolster their security offerings, particularly against the rising tide of vulnerabilities in the industrial Internet of Things, or IoT, and operational technology OT environments.
What are those exactly? Things like factory equipment.
Yes, things like factory equipment, smart building sensors, critical infrastructure devices, all these things that historically lacked robust security.
So why is Armis specifically so valuable to ServiceNow? What do they do?
ARMA specializes in securing connected devices that traditional IT departments often struggle to manage or even see on their network. Integrating their capabilities into ServiceNow's automated workflow platform is a clear move to enhance proactive cybersecurity offerings.
So organizations can automatically discover, track, and secure every single connected device.
Exactly. It reduces the attack surface area dramatically.
Meanwhile, the U.S.-China chip wars continue to generate significant corporate fallout, indicating that geopolitical tension translates directly to the stock market.
The friction is definitely escalating. China has vowed retaliation against what it calls unreasonable U.S. semiconductor tariffs, which are designed to restrict China's access to advanced chips. The corporate impact was immediate. NVIDIA, a massive player, halted a test that was using Intel's chip production process.
And what was the immediate consequence of that decision?
Intel's stock declined following the announcement. This suggests immediate concerns from the market about the long-term viability or reliability of Intel's manufacturing processes amid this global supply chain uncertainty and geopolitical risk.
And the U.S. is tightening the screws as well.
Yes, the U.S. has also intensified its restrictions on certain exports to sensitive Chinese entities, further impacting China's domestic AI and high-performance computing aspirations.
And related to that technological competition, China is reacting strongly to the U.S. Federal Communications Commission's, or SDC's, ban on new foreign drone imports, largely targeting companies like DJI.
China views this ban as the U.S. misusing national security concerns to protect its own domestic drone producers. They see it as protectionism disguised as security.
And the SEC's argument.
The FCC argues the ban is necessary due to significant national security risks posed by foreign-made drones that could potentially transmit sensitive data back to foreign governments. This is all part of the broader pattern of decoupling critical technology supply chains.
Let's end the tech segment on a sustainable note. A fascinating research breakthrough involving used cooking oil, which is a major waste product.
Yes, this was a great story. Researchers successfully created an exceptionally strong, high-performance adhesive from used cooking oil, a waste material that often poses a huge disposal challenge.
And how strong is it?
The glue is described as being strong enough to tow a car.
Wow.
And it offers a petroleum-free alternative for manufacturing and construction. This innovation is a major step toward a more circular economy, transforming a low-value waste product into a high-value, sustainable resource.
We shift now to the geopolitical battlefield, where conflict and diplomatic fallout are dominating the headlines, starting with the ongoing conflict in Ukraine.
The military front continues to shift tragically, and it highlights the high cost of this war. Russia recently captured the eastern town of Seversk in the Donetsk region. This represents a significant Russian strategic gain.
Why is it so strategic?
It brings their forces closer to securing the remaining cities that form the last line of defense for Ukrainian troops in that area, and it potentially opens up new operational pathways for them.
Amidst these tactical losses, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has put forth a revised, U.S.-backed 20-point peace plan. Given that previous plans were rejected outright by Moscow, what are the core, detailed proposals aimed at de-escalation this time?
Well, this is a complex diplomatic effort focused on combining economic revitalization with security guarantees. Key proposals include the creation of free economic zones in newly liberated areas to attract foreign investment quickly.
Okay.
Also, establishing mutually agreed-upon demilitarized zones in the Donbas region to reduce military presence, and detailed mechanisms for the return of prisoners of war and deported children.
And crucially, the plan suggests the withdrawal of Russian forces from certain Ukrainian regions. And Zelensky indicated that elections would occur following the agreement, which is a notable political shift, as he has suspended them due to martial law.
That election provision is a calculated risk. It's signaling an adherence to democratic principles, but it requires a massive commitment from Russia. And critically, Moscow has not formally responded to the new 20-point proposal.
And Putin's public stance hasn't changed.
Not at all. President Vladimir Putin continues to assert publicly that Russia will achieve all of its objectives, maintaining that a diplomatic resolution is only possible if Ukraine capitulates to Moscow's demands and withdraws all troops from the territories Russia claims to have annexed. The gap between the two sides remains immense.
We also have reports of continued, highly secret, high-level diplomacy taking place in the U.S., suggesting that back channels are still active.
That's right. The Kremlin remains deliberately secretive regarding the specifics of talks involving Russian negotiator Kirill Dmitriev and U.S. officials, specifically naming Jared Kushner and Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, who met in Miami. Moscow is keen to keep details private, arguing that public discussion could jeopardize any fragile progress.
Shifting to European actions, NATO and the EU are clearly operating with heightened military preparedness, indicating a deeply rooted fear of future conflict with Russia.
The preparation is severe and undeniable. Germany, driven by the changing security dynamics and direct threat assessments, approved a massive €50 billion military spending package.
$50 billion.
Specifically in anticipation of potential future conflicts with Russia before 2029. This is a complete reversal of decades of post-Cold War defense policy. The European Union also approved a substantial €90 billion loan facility to support Ukraine's budget and recovery over the next 2 years.
And the rhetoric is matching the enormous financial and strategic commitment. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk asserted a very significant shift in U.S. policy under the Trump administration.
He did. Tusk claimed there is now a direct, specific U.S. military commitment, that the United States would respond militarily against Russia if Russia violates a ceasefire agreement in Ukraine.
That's a huge claim.
It is. And whether that's fully verified or strategic posturing, it highlights a major escalation in perceived Western commitment. Simultaneously, the UK Chief of Defense Staff issued a stark, grim warning to British families, indicating they should prepare to lose sons and daughters in a potential war with Russia.
So the entire continent is bracing for potential escalation.
They're treating future conflict as a genuine possibility, not just a theoretical threat.
Next, we address the highly controversial military pressure exerted by the U.S. administration on Venezuela, which includes the deployment of a naval blockade.
This situation is exceptionally complex, and it's fraught with international legal controversy. The Trump administration has intensified pressure on the Maduro regime, including the second seizure of a Venezuelan-linked oil tanker within a week. This follows President Trump's directive for a partial naval blockade.
And this is part of the government's intensified strategy to control the flow of sanctioned Venezuelan oil, right? To destabilize the regime through economic pressure.
That's the stated goal.
The operations have escalated beyond simple seizure and include reported military strikes in the Caribbean.
They have. There is an escalated U.S. military presence in the Caribbean, including airstrikes targeting boats linked to Colombian and Venezuelan criminal groups allegedly involved in drug transport operations. Reports indicate that these strikes have resulted in over 100 fatalities.
This is where the major controversy lies, particularly regarding the legal justification for operating this way in international waters. 4 UN human rights experts called this an illegal act of aggression. What is the administration's legal defense for conducting these strikes?
The administration relies on the claim of self-defense and disruption of transnational criminal organizations. They're framing the strikes as necessary interdiction operations under an expanded counter-narcotics authority.
But the critics?
The critics, including those 4 UN human rights experts, are labeling these strikes as potential war crimes or extrajudicial killings. They argue the use of overwhelming military force against lightly armed smugglers far exceeds the bounds of international maritime law and necessary force.
The controversy then intensified when Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth publicly refused to release the video footage of a second strike, despite calls for transparency.
That's right, especially after reports suggested that strike targeted survivors who were clinging to wreckage.
And that refusal only fuels suspicion.
It significantly fuels suspicion and distrust. It suggests that the administration is attempting to control the narrative regarding the scale and nature of the use of force. The international reaction has been swift and severe. At the UN Security Council, Russia and China accused the U.S. of conducting the greatest extortion known in our history regarding its dealings with Venezuela, using military force to achieve economic objectives. The Iranian parliament also condemned the U.S. actions.
And Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro's response was definitive.
Maduro firmly rejected the U.S. pressure. He declared that U.S. efforts to steal Venezuelan oil and gas are not going to happen. Furthermore, the Venezuelan National Assembly enacted a new law explicitly aimed at safeguarding its maritime commerce against what it perceives as U.S. piracy.
We have a deepening schism between the U.S. and Europe over digital content regulation and alleged censorship, creating a new layer of transatlantic friction. The Trump administration enacted a controversial U.S. visa ban targeting European officials. Yes, the U.S. State Department, via Secretary of State Marco Rubio, announced a ban on 5 prominent European individuals, including former EU Commissioner Thierry Breton and UK social media campaigners. The key accusation is that these Europeans pressured U.S. tech companies to censor American viewpoints online, by weaponizing the European Union's Digital Services Act, or DSA.
For our listeners who may not be familiar, what is the DSA and why is it the specific flashpoint for this geopolitical tension?
The Digital Services Act is the EU's landmark law governing online platforms. It imposes very strict rules regarding how platforms must handle illegal content, disinformation, and hate speech. And the U.S. State Department's concern is
Their concern, which is the core of the friction, is that the DSA's broad definitions of misinformation allow EU officials to exert extraterritorial pressure on U.S. tech companies, forcing them to remove or demote content posted by Americans, content that is often protected under the U.S. Constitution's First Amendment guarantees of free speech.
So the U.S. views the DSA as a tool for weaponizing the definition of misinformation against American political discourse. How has Europe reacted to the U.S., barring entry to their officials and activists?
France immediately condemned the ban. They argued that it undermines democratic values and openness by punishing officials for upholding European laws designed to protect citizens from disinformation. This action just deepens the transatlantic tensions over who has the authority to regulate content, especially political content.
We also saw historic actions related to the enduring legacy of colonialism. Algeria's parliament made a very powerful declaration concerning French colonial rule.
On December 24th, Algeria's parliament took the unprecedented step of unanimously labeling French colonial rule, which lasted from 1830 to 1962, a state crime. This declaration carries significant weight.
Why now?
Well, it formally demands a public apology and reparations from France, highlighting the unresolved issues stemming from the brutal tactics used during the colonization and the subsequent war for independence.
The reports connected this historical colonial mindset to modern geopolitics, using the concept of mission civilisatrice.
Yes, the Al Jazeera documentary French Empire, Civilizing Mission, discussed this in detail. Mission civilisatrice was the idea that France was exporting civilization through language, education, and cultural assimilation, justifying their empire by claiming they were improving the lives of colonized peoples.
And the documentary draws a parallel to the U.S. today.
It does. It draws a parallel between this historical soft power and the modern global influence exerted by the United States through powerful media, Hollywood, and digital platforms. It suggests that contemporary debates over cultural control and global inequality are rooted in these lingering colonial legacies.
Shifting to a tragic political incident, a business jet carrying the Libyan army chief crashed near Ankara, Turkey.
That's right. A Falcon 50 business jet carrying General Mohammed Ali Ahmad al-Haddad, the Libyan army chief, and 4 others, lost radio contact shortly after takeoff and crashed, killing everyone on board.
And he was on a high-level mission.
A high-level defense mission which has significant political repercussions in Libya, a country which remains highly fractured. Search teams did recover the flight recorders and reported a fault was detected before the crash.
Given the volatile political context in Libya, which is often subject to external interference, the mention of a fault before the crash immediately raises implicit questions, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. When high-level defense officials involved in fragile political ecosystems die in plane crashes, the suspicion of foul play is immediate, regardless of the initial recovery findings. It injects a moment of necessary gravitas, reminding us how frequently defense and political missions in conflict zones are subject to fatal faults, whether mechanical or intentional.
Finally, we have to mention the controversial appointment of a new U.S. envoy to Greenland.
Yes, the appointment of U.S. envoy G. Landry is actively exacerbating diplomatic strains with Denmark, and the controversy stems directly from Landry's provocative history of advocating for military action to annex Greenland.
Which fits a pattern.
It fits into the broader controversial rhetoric from the Trump administration regarding the strategic and resource importance of the Arctic region, making the diplomatic waters increasingly icy for Washington and Copenhagen.
Now we come back to Earth and look at the economic reality and the headlines shaping the holidays.
Starting with the baseline economic news, the U.S. economy reported its fastest growth in 2 years during the third quarter of 2025. This surge, according to analysts, was primarily driven by continued strong consumer spending and increased business investment.
That sounds objectively positive, suggesting economic resilience. Yet, trend forecaster Gerald Celente, the publisher of the Trends Journal, has a dire, almost completely contrarian warning. He states outright that the markets are phony.
He does. Salente predicts severe downturns and warns readers to prepare for dragflation.
Dragflation.
It's a term he uses to describe a prolonged economic stagnation coupled with high inflation, paralleling the dangerous 1970s stagflation era. He asserts that the financial systems are manipulated and fundamentally unsustainable due to massive debt levels and excessive money printing.
Wait, if the data shows the economy grew at its fastest pace in 2 years, suggesting momentum, are we supposed to ignore hard GDP data in favor of precious metal performance? Does he explain specifically which manipulated financial systems he is referring to, beyond just vague warnings?
He argues that the GDP growth is distorted by debt, and that inflation is structurally embedded due to supply chain disruption and monetary policy decisions, specifically past quantitative easing. His evidence for the looming chaos is indeed tied heavily to the performance of gold and silver.
Right, and gold and silver are hitting record highs. They're on track for their best yearly performance since 1979.
Which strongly supports the view of precious metals as a safe haven investment amidst widespread economic uncertainty and global turmoil. Salente suggests that gold will soar precisely because people are losing faith in manipulated fiat currencies and centralized financial systems.
So the tension between robust GDP data and Salente's dire warnings reflects a deep uncertainty about the true health of the foundation beneath the economy.
That's a good way to put it.
Moving to monetary policy, we see President Trump putting public pressure on the supposed independence of the Federal Reserve.
He is. President Trump explicitly demanded that his next nominee for the Federal Reserve chair must agree with his specific stance on keeping interest rates low. This demand raises immediate and significant concerns about the Fed's independence.
Because the Fed is designed to be free from political influence.
Exactly. It's supposed to make policy decisions, like setting interest rates free from political influence to ensure long-term stability rather than short-term political gains.
Meanwhile, one of the biggest investment firms, Vanguard, is rethinking the conventional wisdom surrounding retirement strategy.
Vanguard is actively moving away from the traditional 60-40 investment strategy, 60% stocks, 40% bonds, which has been the gold standard for decades.
So what are they recommending now?
They suggest that given current low-yield bond environments and volatility in equities, investors may need a more aggressive allocation, perhaps 70-30 or even 80-20, to achieve sufficient long-term growth and combat the potential effects of inflation.
And finally, on a practical note, for households enduring the winter, there is government relief available for utility costs.
Yes, the U.S. government allocated $3.6 billion in relief specifically to assist households facing high heating bills due to steep energy price increases, urging eligible families to apply.
Okay, let's unpack this next section. The fallout from the newly released Jeffrey Epstein files continues to dominate legal and political news, shedding light on the intricate relationships between wealth and power.
The second large batch of documents released by the U.S. Justice Department contains numerous references that fuel ongoing scrutiny of Epstein's network. The key revelation concerning a high-profile figure is confirmation that President Donald Trump flew on Epstein's private jet many more times than previously reported, according to testimony detailed in the prosecutorial files.
And this ongoing saga continues to highlight the complex and often troubling relationships between immense wealth and political power, specifically in relation to Prince Andrew as well.
Absolutely. The files continue to fuel scrutiny regarding Andrew and his ties to Epstein. Each new revelation adds layers to the situation, reinforcing the narrative that Epstein operated with impunity due to the level of powerful people he associated with.
It challenges public perceptions of who is held accountable in the U.S. justice system.
It does.
Shifting to another high-profile legal drama, we have updates on comedian Russell Brand.
Russell Brand has been charged with new offenses of rape and sexual assault, marking a significant legal development in the ongoing scrutiny of his alleged conduct and the wider discussions about accountability sparked by the Me Too movement.
In economic legal news, the administration is resuming a punitive policy against student loan defaulters that had been paused during the pandemic.
That's the Trump administration's announcement that they will resume wage garnishment for borrowers who have defaulted on their federal student loans effective January 7th. This is a resumption of a policy aimed at recouping federal debt through mandatory paycheck deductions.
And this is causing significant concern among low-income borrowers.
A great deal of concern.
And then we have the bizarre human side of economic hardship during the holidays. the story of the avocado thief in Florida.
Yes, Adel Perez, a father in South Florida, was arrested for grand theft and trespassing after stealing approximately 400 pounds of avocados from a local grove.
400 pounds.
And he claimed to police that he did it specifically to buy Christmas gifts for his children. This lighthearted yet serious crime sparked a very real debate on economic hardship, the rising cost of living, and the difficult choices faced by low-income families during the holiday season.
Finally, we need to address the concerning security situation in Russia, potentially linked to the fallout from the Ukraine conflict.
In Moscow, an explosion, reportedly an improvised explosive device or IED attack, resulted in the deaths of 2 traffic police officers and another individual after they approached a suspicious person near their patrol car.
And this happened close to another recent incident.
Distressingly close to the site where a Russian general was assassinated earlier in the week. Authorities suspect potential links to Ukrainian operatives or partisan resistance, noting the increased risk from armaments flooding the black market due to the ongoing conflict.
We have several significant updates concerning health and well-being, starting with a very somber announcement from a high-profile politician.
Former Senator Ben Sasse, a prominent Republican figure, made an emotional and remarkably candid announcement regarding his diagnosis of stage 4 pancreatic cancer, openly acknowledging the severity of his illness by stating he is gonna die. His candor has drawn significant media attention to the difficult prognosis of this aggressive disease.
Then there's the massive cyber breach that compromised the data of millions of individuals, highlighting critical security failings in the healthcare sector.
Yes. Aflac Incorporated, the largest provider of supplemental insurance in the U.S., confirmed that hackers stole the personal and health data of 22.6 million individuals.
22.6 million.
And the stolen data includes highly sensitive information like social security numbers, addresses, and detailed healthcare records. It's a severe data security and privacy failure in a sector legally obligated to protect patient confidentiality.
For those navigating the challenges of holiday gatherings, we also have a deep dive into a specific condition that makes the festive season a genuine nightmare: misophonia.
Misophonia is a rare but debilitating condition characterized by extreme sound sensitivity. For sufferers, the festive season filled with cheerful gatherings, loud chewing, and the specific high-frequency sound of utensils clinking against plates can trigger intense anxiety, rage, and discomfort.
So what's the advice for people who suffer from this?
The advice offered by experts is clear. Find quiet environments, use noise-canceling headphones, and crucially, proactively communicate their needs to family members for support and accommodation.
In terms of medical marvels and human resilience, we have the incredible story of Jasmine Ramirez.
Jasmine, a teenager born with a rare congenital condition, underwent an extraordinary marathon surgery lasting over 20 hours to successfully remove her massive 174-pound leg. Her journey is highlighted not only as a testament to surgical advancements, but also as a powerful beacon of the human spirit's capacity to overcome seemingly insurmountable physical obstacles.
Finally, a health discussion linked directly to environmental policy and taxation in South Asia.
The Delhi High Court questioned the excessively high 18% goods and services tax, or GST, levied on air purifiers.
What was their argument?
The judges argued that given the severe air pollution crisis in the region, which causes widespread respiratory illness, air purifiers should be taxed at the lower 5% rate applied to essential medical devices. They underscored the necessity of clean air by noting that individuals breathe approximately 21,000 times a day.
Making this a fundamental health and justice issue.
Exactly.
We wrap up with the holiday headlines, starting with a quick look at the festive scene in Hong Kong, which was described as subdued.
It was. Despite crowds gathering in commercial districts, the festive atmosphere was notably tempered compared to previous years. Analysis suggested over 540,000 residents had left the city for holidays abroad.
And people were staying home more.
Yes, there was a visible shift as many families opted for home-cooked meals over dining out due to high restaurant prices, although some high-end restaurants still anticipated a modest business increase.
And for royal watchers globally, King Charles delivered his traditional Christmas speech from Westminster Abbey.
His message focused on the profound theme of the pilgrimage of life, reflecting on personal and communal journeys through life's triumphs and trials. He underscored the importance of resilience, compassion, and continuity.
We also have a charming historical anecdote about Christmas tradition, how turkeys used to actually get to London before refrigeration and the rail network.
It's a great story. Before the advent of railways and refrigeration, turkeys destined for Christmas dinners were literally walked from farms, sometimes hundreds of miles away, into London. This labor-intensive journey, often involving a team of drovers and sometimes weeks on the road, highlights the vast logistical differences in historical food supply chains compared to today's modern, hyper-efficient infrastructure.
And the high-tech tradition that captivates millions of families every Christmas Eve, tracking Santa.
The tradition famously began in 1955 when a misprinted newspaper advertisement led a child to call the Continental Air Defense Command, which evolved into the NORAD Santa Tracker.
NORAD being the North American Aerospace Defense Command.
Correct. NORAD uses a vast array of radar and satellites to monitor SAMA's flight path, with thousands of volunteers handling calls from around the world. Google also provides its own interactive tracking system, integrating educational content and games.
But NORAD is keeping it old school in one way.
It is notable, yes, that NORAD specifically avoids using artificial intelligence in its tracking operations, preferring human judgment and real technology.
Finally, we saw a fascinating note on modern film promotion, centered on Timothée Chalamet's latest genre-bending film, Marty Supreme.
The promotional tour for Marty Supreme, a film that blends high-stakes political satire with the niche sport of ping pong, was described as highly eccentric. Critics noted that Chalamet's charismatic presence and ability to engage with fans through unconventional, often unhinged publicity stunts are now pivotal in today's cinema landscape.
This is prompting serious questions about what truly sells a film in 2025.
Right. Is it just the performance, or is it this blend of high-performance quality with innovative promotion and the star's personal brand performance?
So what does this all mean? We have covered an incredible span of topics today, from the infinitesimal flexibility of archaic DNA to massive geopolitical confrontations over oil, technology, and censorship. The core tension I see defining this year is the sheer unchecked acceleration of scientific and technological discovery running directly parallel to intensifying global fractures and vulnerabilities.
I agree completely. If you look at this deep dive, the relentless pursuit of rapid technological advancement, be it AI, autonomous vehicles, or quantum leaps, is occurring right alongside the exposure of crucial systems vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
Whether it's the Zook software glitches, the Waymo robotaxis stalling due to infrastructure failure in San Francisco, or the massive data breach at an insurance giant like Aflac, our hyper-reliance on sophisticated technology exposes our digital and political fragility almost immediately.
It's the cost of speed. We invent faster than we can secure, regulate, or even philosophically comprehend the consequences.
And that brings us back full circle to the very beginning of our deep dive. If Dr. Bobson's theory is correct, suggesting that our universe might fundamentally be a computational framework driven by information theory, and AI is simultaneously challenging the very concept of original, authentic expression in academia and the arts, this raises a crucial question for you, our listener, to consider as we move into the next year.
And that question is,
as intellectual consumers navigating this world, how should we distinguish between authentic, hard-won knowledge like the results of that 40-year beetle study, and optimized simulation or synthesized output? When the line between reality and computation, between genuine human contribution and algorithmic efficiency, becomes increasingly blurry.
a profound thought to ponder as you reflect on the sheer volume of information surrounding us. Thank you for joining us for the deep dive. We'll be back soon with another stack of material to unpack.
You're enjoying Artificially Informed.
Hit subscribe and share it with a friend.
From the left, the right, and straight from the algorithm.
Thank you.
That's it for today's Artificially Informed.
Nope. Thanks for spending your time with us.
Yeah.
Stay sharp, stay curious. See you next time.